Hey, this is Garrett Adkins with the Generation One More Time podcast. I'm here with Aaron Lamb today. You'll recognize him from the GameCube podcast we did last time. But this time, we're going to be talking about the singing, dancing X-Grapes called the California Raisins. That's the main subject of this episode. But first, we're going to talk about that intro a little bit. Aaron, you and the audience are in a very similar position in that you and the audience are the first few people to hear that song ever. It's from a game called Mary-Kate and Ashley Sweet 16 License to Drive. Game so good they named it twice. And you introduced me to that game and that song. So why don't you tell me a little bit about how you found that?
So when me and my brother were younger, we played a lot of GameCube. We played thousands of hours of Melee. We'd wake up, we'd go to sleep. We played Melee in the middle. Forgot to mention that. But we put like thousands of hours in it though. That's the point. And then one day my sister comes home with Mary-Kate and Ashley, Sweet 16, License to Drive. And she realized, she needed a few blocks for her to save her game. Save her fucking 2 minigame game. That's beside the point. So it devastated me. She deleted our Smash Brothers save file, of course, because what else would you do in that situation? So me and this game were not off to a good start. But then I heard that intro, and all my negative thoughts about it just flew out the window. I was probably like 10 years off of being 16 or 11, something like that. But that song stuck with me. And then you played the nice that version that they cut out the cheater girl,
right?
And it was even better. It was incredible. It had a very grungy early 2000s sound to it, which I might be some of my favorite kind of music, and it had some ska in there too. And I'd say maybe even the end of that song was incredible. Like I really like the drums at the end.
Right.
They pick up very ska,
Right.
Ska's not dead. It's just, yeah.
Ska's not dead.
He's surely alive. But yeah, dude, I liked it a lot. I like his little bit of raspiness to the vocals, which I'm always a fan of. It took it away from hey, this is from a early 2000s girl game to like, which was still an incredible song, to like, this is just a kick-ass, grungy, little fast-paced,
right,
little ditty. And I'm a big fan now. I'm glad you were able to get in touch with the.
Let me tell it.
Oh, you're right.
Let me tell it. So I heard the song, and after you'd shown it to me, and I think we had talked about wanting a clean version.
How it didn't exist on the internet.
Yeah. I looked, and I'm not the only one who was looking for it, but I looked over plenty of forums where people were asking, hey, where's the intro song to this? I'd love a clean version, just people wanting to know the name or the artist or whatever. And I decided that I would be the last version to be wanting, or I decided I'd be the last person wanting that version. So I found this site called Moby Games, which is like the IMDb of video games. I was able to find the credited vocalist on Moby Games named Mr. Troy Jacobson, and he had a profile on there. You click on the hyperlinks and it shows you all the games they've worked on. So he was also credited as like a level designer for the game. I messaged him through Moby Games, waited a week, he didn't answer. I reverse image searched his profile pic, found his personal website, contacted him through the website, waited a week, he didn't answer. I then contacted him directly through his email, which was listed on the website, and then waited a week. And all these times I was basically saying, hello, Mr. Jacobson. You're credited as the vocalist of this song. I would love to have a copy of it. I would love to have it as the intro to my podcast, and I would love to release it to the world. But at the very least, if you are able to, I would love to have a copy of it personally, because I'm in love with this song. I think it'd be perfect for my podcast, and I know that there's a ton of people who are eager to have it, eager because they obviously love this game. Maybe it's a part of their childhood. So I just said, if you don't feel comfortable letting me have a clean version of the song, just let me know and we'll go our separate ways. And I waited a week after I had emailed him directly, and I emailed him one more time. And I said, and at risk of being portrayed as a stalker, this was going to be the last time I messaged him. And I
finally messages back. It's a copy of the restraining order.
I told him, Mr. Jacobson, I know sometimes emails can be buried in the more important stuff, So I'm just going to follow up with you on my request that I made. Again, if you don't feel comfortable with it, you can let me know or don't. This is going to be the last time that I message you on this matter. I thank you for your consideration, and I'd be honored. But as a creator of my own, I know how hard it is to trust somebody else with your work. So, wasn't expecting to get this message back from him, But he did. He messaged me, and I was awestruck whenever I saw the notification pop up on my phone, because I was not expecting him to message back, Yeah.
It's like a shot in the dark.
It could have been an email that he had never used or never used anymore,
Is he do you know if he's still in the music business? Like what's he doing now?
I'm going to get to it. He gave me a little bit of the history of the song and said, "Hey, I have a version of the song that's never been heard because I sold the rights to the song that has been heard to the gaming company, which I'm not going to name on this podcast, even though they're out of business, but I'm not going to name them. It's public knowledge."
I don't know if I even remember the name.
So
I remember the song.
He sold the rights to the song to the gaming company, and so he gave me a little bit of history, He
got ties with that version, basically.
Pretty much.
One-time payment, it's gone.
Well, okay. He said that he was at a party, some kind of party in Silicon Valley or wherever video games are born, and he was talking to a guy at the party, and he mentioned that he worked for the video game company. The guy said, "Oh yeah, your company wanted us to give them a song for free for use in a video game." And he said he was just a level designer. So he wasn't really, he had a band, and I've heard some of his other stuff.
So Jacobson was
But Troy Jacobson was
a level designer?
A level designer.
Ooh.
Troy was just a level designer, but he went back and told the company, "Hey, I'm gonna do the song for your video game," because he was in a band.
Yeah.
And so they ended up busting out the song that we just heard, sent it to him, and they said that they wanted it a little bit more. They ended
up demographic.
Yeah, they ended up adding a cheetah girl to it.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was cool that he went and made the song because he was already working for them instead of them trying to rip off a band for free, you know?
Yeah, which is really messed up.
That's why I'm not going to say the name of the company.
They don't. Yeah.
But it's public information. So I very much want to thank Mr. Troy Jacobson for letting me use his music and giving me the honor to post it and put it out to the world publicly. You can get to Troy Jacobson if you want to look him up at tumbleweed.com, or he's also on reverbnation.com/Troy Jacobson. You can listen to some of his music there. He's
got more. Ooh,
some of it. He's got a few videos.
Is
very, very, very like 90s videos, you know.
Yeah. Is it more like kind of fast paced early 2000s, or is it?
He calls it like ska, and I think it is a little bit of ska, but it's very, very grungy ska, you know.
I like that. I'm big on grunge music. I like a lot of Nirvana.
He did like one other video game song that I heard for a game called Death Tanks.
Death Tanks.
Just basically one of the regular straight up artillery games where you're a tank, they're a tank, and you just shoot different projectiles, you know. But the song
sounds the Death Tank like some ska, you know.
I mean,
I'm sure
it's very for that one. I'm gonna do my cover here. Death Tank.
Oh yeah,
Death Tank. You know,
it's like I'm there with them.
But you can hear that music there. I did see a video on Reverb Nation of him and some friends in the 90s, like out there in their freaking. It looked like a Nickelodeon fucking convertible because it was like I think it was green and orange and very 90s and
very of the times.
They were out there all over that car. Him and his old long-haired buddies
hitting the doobies.
I mean, they were driving around. It said it was like a school lunch break. It was just an interesting look into 90s culture, you know, late 90s. Like
everybody was at.
Because you and I were either born or not even born.
Yeah.
But they were sitting kind of on the on the doors of the car instead of actually down in it. So, you know, a little dangerous.
A little on the edge. A little life on the edge.
But they're teenagers, freaking invincible, right?
In their death tanks and, and all that.
I'm just going to thank Troy for giving us the
memories.
These golden plates that we can actually dig up and show to everybody.
Yeah, thank you for the tracks, but thank you for the memories too.
Oh, yeah.
It's very nostalgic to hear that song. Although I've never been a big fan of the game itself, that song stuck with me definitely for years.
I am so thankful to have the honor, you know?
Yeah, it had such more, like you said, he's into the ska and grunge, and who says ska's dead, you know?
Right.
I dig it, and then I'm really into grunge, so hearing it with more of that edge, a song that I already liked, it really elevated it.
Right.
Once they got the cheetah girl out of there.
Well, yeah, you know, every song is written. It's written the way that it's written for that band to sing it. So, like, if you end up changing it in a certain way, unless you kind of change it in a major way, it's not necessarily gonna work. You know,
I'm not knocking the cheetah girl. She's a good singer. I'm sure she's a great person. But
I didn't mind the
I didn't either.
old version either.
I thought it was fantastic, but hearing this version, it's like
it's night and day almost.
Oh yeah, like you don't realize how like you're like, oh, this is real good, and then you get the even better version. You don't realize how good you got it. You know?
Right.
It's something.
All right, so let's get into the California Raisins.
Ooh, I'm ready.
So we just watched
Meet the Raisins.
Will Vinton's Meet the Raisins. And Aaron on his own has been playing the unreleased Ness California Raisins video game.
Let me talk a little bit about that first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I haven't played a ton because it's hard as hell, and I can't even describe how difficult this game is. I thought maybe this had something to do with it not being released. No, it's just because by then the sales were dropping for like the raisins and everything, so they didn't see it as a source of money. They couldn't do anything with it, so they just never used it. But I did some research. I can mention that it was pretty damn cool. So I started the game, and there's four levels. There's the cannery, the maze, the juicery, and the grapevine. All of them kind of garbo, being honest. And then because I tried the juice, the cannery, and then okay, hold on. I know I'm going on a tangent, but the enemies in the game are the grapes, right? So the premise of the game are the grapes. The premise of the game is the California raisins and their music has disappeared. They've been kidnapped, and then like the Raisin Council, it's weird. They're all wearing white wigs. They tell you that you need to go save them from their rival band, what was it? The Wild. They're grapes. And I was really confused because they're the same entity, right? Raisins and grapes. So I didn't know if this was a race thing or a lifestyle difference. I don't know what it is, but that I found some continuity error right there in the first place. And then when I got to the cannery, then I realized how shit the game actually was.
Right.
I started in like your attack is it a gun? I don't remember what it is. It might just point his finger or something. Some projectile. But the things come at you at like Mach 5, and then your ass is getting hit 90% of the time. And then there's this one enemy that's like it's wearing it looks like a satellite, but it's a grape, and it bounces around, and it has the worst pattern known to man in the game. And I does not get hit by it. There's no way. So that sucked, and I got a game over every 5 seconds from that thing. And then I was like, I need to be able to talk about this game. So I looked at this dude's playthrough on YouTube, and he beat it in 14 minutes, and like barely even he got hit. But so you're trying to collect these. I don't know how canonically it makes sense, but you're trying to get the 4 golden music notes so that you can go to the grapevine or something like that, and then go save them. And so there's a weird ending. I didn't look it up because I went on another tangent. It's actually really sad how this game was found. Okay. So as you know, it was canceled. It was buried. Nobody knew it existed. And then this guy, he did an interview about it. He was at a game store, and some woman was with their child, and they're trying to sell their games, their old NES games, because there's someone at Xbox. It was like 02 or something. So it's like an original Xbox. They're trying to sell the old NES cartridges they have. And he looked at them, and all of them had they said they could only give him like 50 cents for each of them or something like that, because they had handmade labels on them. They weren't the correct labels. So the dude's like, hey, sell it on eBay, you'll make more money. And then for helping him, he was like, what about that? He was interested in the raisins one because he had no idea what it could be. So she gave it to him for helping him out. And then he asked her, like, where'd you get these? Because like he thought maybe they could be something special. And then she said like her husband worked at a game company or something like that, and so she took the rest because their games are already out. But he was just like, all right, I'll take the raisins. And then she's like, you're gonna sell it? And he told her no. So he didn't sell it because like he gave her his word he wasn't gonna sell it because he was a collector. He collected Capcom games, and it was a Capcom game. And so he went home and he put it in and he played the game, and like just himself. He had no idea this was an unreleased game until like months later or something like that. He found some posts of people talking about it, and he was like, I have the game. Like they're talking about this lost media, and he's like, I literally have it. So he got a ton of offers. People were offering him thousands of dollars for it. And then he was like, no, I told this lady I was going to sell it. So he took it and he dumped it online, the ROM. And he did the moral thing and dumped it online. And so everybody had it. And then at that point, he was like, I don't really need it anymore. I got it out there. He didn't want some collector like just not posting it. You know what I mean? Right. But at that point, people weren't interested in the cartridge anymore. They're interested more in the unseen lost media. So instead, later on he sold it for like $600 instead. I think he got like an offer for like $3,000. So it cost him like $2,400. But he did the right thing and he posted it. Yeah, and then the guy that did the interview, and he ended up like his mom, the guy's mom contacted her. It turns out he made a very sad demise, and he ended up like being a victim of like murder and stuff like that at like 22. Yeah, and like pretty bad. Like they like set everything on fire, and yeah. And I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's sad. But with like the guy that did the interview helped his mom sell all his games and his collection and stuff, so he did help her out that way. But It took me down a path I did not expect, but it was pretty rad to learn some backstory to it.
I love that. That's like an unknown history thing,
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Oh, God, hold on. What's that dude's name? It was the guy on YouTube. He posted that in his comments, like the interview. So I should probably be giving him some credit. It's the guy that he beat it in like 14 minutes. Made me look like a joke. Nintendo Complete. That's the guy that did it. So that's my experience with the game. It's kind of ass, but it's got a great story behind it.
That's all we could have hoped for.
Of course.
Really. I think, honestly, a lot of Raisin media that you and I have seen is mediocre, but memey.
Yes,
you know?
Of course. That's what draws me to
mediocre, but, like, ironic. There is not a lot to them. We watched 30 minutes of fruit puns, basically, when we watched Meet the Raisins.
And the funny thing about the California Raisins is, like, it's like they're slowly fading. I look up information on them, and I don't know if, like simple information, like I know there's names for the raisins, right? I looked up the names for the raisins. It is so damn hard to find a list of more than, like, 3 raisins. The only ones I know are Tiny Good Bite, Been in the Sun, and I learned one today that was pretty great. It was Justin X Grape. Justin X Grape. I thought that was pretty great. And then, other than that, I don't know. Nobody posts it. No, the information's kind of just disappearing.
Did you find that on the like collector website? No? Okay. So
Why, they had a lot?
Well, yeah, but that's because you also started me on collecting the little figures.
Mm-hmm.
So in trying to find the names of the little figures, they're all from, like, Hardee's and stuff. You know, I don't know where you got them.
That's where you came up with the names?
But
where you got the names?
There was this website that I got on, and I couldn't tell you, but I'm sure I'll link it in the description. It had documented all the, like, it's like a collector guide, you know? It had all the raisins and everything, and all their names.
To think of that.
And all the different variations.
Of course,
and
they have it on the toys.
It even had, like, the stuffed versions and stuff.
Yeah.
But from what I could tell from my reading is that the name, like, Tiny Good Bite and Justin X Grape and Ben in the Sun weren't, like, official until there was some kind of contest to name California Raisins.
Oh, okay.
So, because the ones we saw in Meet the Raisins, which came out in 1986,
like Stretch, Red, and
Stretch, AC,
Red, and what was
the other one was Bebop. Yeah. And there were some toys. I think the earlier ones were more plastic.
Yeah.
And so you can get the, like, plastic raisins, and they're labeled, like, Bebop Raisin, AC Raisin, and all that. But, like, the ones that we really like, the sort of rubber ones, that's where, like, Ben in the Sun came into play, and Justin X Grape and Tiny Good Bite. For a while, it wasn't until Ariel, like, pointed it out, but for a while, I couldn't understand the name Justin X Grape.
Oh my God.
I thought it was the stupidest freaking name ever.
Mm-hmm.
I still think it's the stupidest name ever.
It's one of my favorites.
But it's pretty
great.
funny.
Justin X Grape.
My head did not wrap around it.
That's another thing I'm really confused about. The grapes are the enemies, and in the NES game. But they were all a grape at one point. You know what I mean? And how did they become a raisin? This is an age thing. Is this
because the lore of Meet the Raisins says that they were squished.
Well, no, they were still smooth later on. That's another thing. They were still. It was really weird at the beginning of the documentary. They were still raisins, but they were smooth raisins. They weren't grapes, but they were smooth raisins. It was really
no. They were grapes at that point.
They were not round at all.
They were just smooth.
They were just smooth.
Well, they're like those red wine grapes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because whenever you have green grapes, they turn into little green raisins. Do you know that?
Oh yeah. The one more, the yellowish.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to have those at school. I only ever put those with, like, when they put all the sugar and shit on them. It's the only time they ever gave us, like, the yellow kind. Other than that, they're, like, brown and black. And
I've been running that.
I kind of want raisins now, man.
I've been running that raisin fan account on Twitter recently.
Really?
That's at ratemyraisins at twitter.com. I very frequently will search up the term raisins for mentions and stuff so I can get in there, get some followers,
Yeah.
deep dive in there. A lot of the time, it is just people expressing their disgust for, like, oatmeal raisin bread. People hate raisins. I don't understand it. They're nature's candy.
I know, it's not fair. I mean, I tell you that, but when's the last time you ate a fucking raisin?
But they're not...
Exactly.
They're not bad.
They're not. They're probably the most middle-of-the-line food in existence. And I think that's why people rag on them, because nobody seeks out raisins. It's kind of like, dude, I finished my lunch, but I'm still hungry. You can have my raisins. You know what I mean? Nobody's actively buying raisins, and I think that's what led to the death of the California raisins.
So it's actually not, and I kind of looked into it as well. The death of the California raisins. So in the late 40s, like I think 49, President Harry Truman, began the National Raisin Reserve. And I think they began...
He's known for two things, the atomic bomb and the National Raisin Reserve.
I think that he began a few other reserves, really. But at that point, all the raisin growers in California came together into sort of a union, and they wanted to be able to control, like, market prices. So what they did back then was they would grow their crops, and then a certain percentage of their crops would be taken into the government's hands and put into the reserve. So, like, they'd use it to feed school children at lunch or put it into storage for next year.
All of the nation's schools is only fed raisins. I'd be sick of it, too.
But they all came together so that the market price would stay fair, and so everyone would still buy raisins,
Yeah.
And because apparently it's sort of a wishy-washy crop, just like any crop, really. But apparently it was wishy-washy.
Is it just grapes? Or do you have to grow it a certain way? Just leave it on the stem longer? Or?
All I know is that, like, the flavor of foods depends on how ripe they are.
Everybody knows grapes leads to raisins. Nobody knows the middleman. We don't know what actually happens. We just know it turns into raisins. Again,
like we saw, it involves a piano.
Yeah.
But so
16 tons.
Back then,
it's harder to. It's like if you squish something really hard, right? It becomes a diamond.
Right.
You squish a diamond hard enough, it becomes a raisin. I think that's how it happens.
So they created the National Raisin Reserve, and I think there was a surplus of raisins in California, and they had to figure out how do we get rid of all these raisins. So they approached Will Vinton, I believe was the man behind the Noid at that point. They approached him, they designed the raisins, and California raisins got popular. I think it was somewhat controversial that they only really became popular advertising Sun-made raisins because there were other companies.
Yeah.
So Sun-made raisins started selling a lot of raisins, but then it called for more of a demand on raisins. And, of course, raisin history is very complex.
Of course.
And I can see you're very interested. So I'll try to make it quick. It was complex because they were usually supposed to get paid back. The farmers were usually supposed to get paid back whatever leftovers there was from the raisin reserves, But all the money that came about from that was going towards making more raisins stuff. And so it was kind of costing the raisin growers money to make the California raisins.
Oh, man.
And then there was this one guy who, like, protested it and stopped sending in his raisins and just kept all his raisins. I know that the California raisins ended in 1994 because the funding was disproportionate. So this is kind of separate but raisin related. In 2015, there was a raisin farmer who finally was able to, like, sue the government for their mandatory taking of half the crops, because the raisin reserve wasn't like voluntary. If it was voluntary, I don't think they would have had this problem, but it was mandatory, so they would take up to half your crops,
That's borderline, like communism.
I would say it would probably be communism if it wasn't initially the farmers who had asked to start it up, and then the government just sanctioned it.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say it should have been voluntary, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it did a good job of keeping the market prices stable and everything. Yeah. But he stopped giving his raisins in like 2003 or 2004. 2003, the same year that Mary-Kate and Ashley Sweet 16 License to Drive, Game So Good They Named It Twice, came out.
The first time that beautiful song graced our ears.
He stopped giving all his raisins away like 11 years prior, and then in 2015 finally sued the government because it took him 11 years to really start doing anything about it, because that's how bureaucracy works. Mm-hmm. But this is a raisin podcast, so we won't talk about that. But Raisin Reserve was ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court in 2015.
It took him that long to realize that.
I posted it on my Twitter account, but just there was like the article that I got most of my information from was actually posted in the one I read from was like 2017. So there was an article that I read in like 2013, or I didn't read it in 2013. There was an article that I read from 2013 that said something like, the Raisin Reserve is legally immortal. And then 2 years later, the government declared it unconstitutional. So it was pretty good. So yeah, the California raisins costed the raisin growers too much. And then they figured out the government costed the raisins too much. So that's just how it went.
Damn, so that's how they went down.
And now, these messages.
California raisins from the California vineyards.
Don't you know I heard it through the grapevine?
Sounds great, doesn't it?
Okay, now, let's get back to the California Raisin Show.
I never thought I'd know this much about raisin history and economy, but
who knew?
I do know.
There is just worlds of knowledge and even niche stuff. You know?
Oh yeah.
And I love diving into it.
I mean, you picked up all that off of a song from Mary-Kate and Ashley, Sweet 16, License to Drive. And that's got its own history, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's all I can think of right now. But he told me a few things about it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a whole history that if I hadn't asked about it, him and the other band members and maybe the producer would have known. And then it would have been lost to time.
Oh yeah.
Just like that song, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot. What's he doing now? Is he still producing music or working in games or smoking pot? All the above.
I believe he still works in games. He does like photography. I don't know that he still does music, although I'm sure he still would like to, because I think his website had like a link to his music and then his photography, and then he's got an eye for like cars. He like drives this really sweet truck, and he said
license to drive.
Yeah, he's got that license to drive, man. All I know is he's a very cool guy, and once again, I'm honored.
Oh yeah, he went out of the way to get that computer out of storage, and
yeah,
that's sweet. It's pretty live. It's big for lost media too, because who knows how long. Well, I mean, that was never found in the first place, but there's no way to hear that song except a 30-second clip of putting it in an actual GameCube. So that's really big for preserving it.
And even if you were able to like tear it from the game files, it'd probably have Mary-Kate and Ashley talking over it still.
Yeah. Okay, let's start talking about Meet the Raisins. I want to get into some of the scenes. Okay, I will read off my notes and I'm gonna try to figure out what it was. My first one says, "It ain't too proud." When they sang "Ain't Too Proud," and it was blunt on the mountain because I don't know what fruit that was or what veggie. It just looked like a blunt.
It was a leek.
What the hell's a leek? But they mentally tortured that poor man and threatened his life on multiple occasions. And then had him free fall and caught him, and then they're called heroes. They're the reason he was falling.
I'm sorry. Did you just say they're the reason he was falling?
All right, it's been fun. God, dude, it was all publicity stunt. It's schemy. It's slimy. They did it on purpose to like, see, we saved this man. And they didn't save anybody. He was crying. He feared for his life. Remember that? And they're over there like, "Ain't too proud," or whatever that song is. Tap dancing on the teeter-totter. It's immoral. It was wrong.
So what we're saying is there's probably a little bit of racism that's not okay in these times, but we would definitely, if you're into raisins or if you're into 80s weirdness, Meet the Raisins is probably a good choice for you.
Oh, I couldn't recommend it enough.
I mean, there was some questionable stuff about, from what we could tell, and
the spaghetti western.
Be aware that our complexion is very, very fair. So
yeah,
our stance on this, we're not going to dwell on it too much, but there were some questionable representations of Italians,
stereotypes
of Spanish people.
Yeah.
Definitely some questionable things about African Americans that could be taken out of context.
Yeah, I agree.
So please don't take it out of context. Please, 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 America, do not cancel the raisins.
Oh,
it's my livelihood.
I don't know what I would do if the California raisins have ceased to exist for the past 27 years. Okay, my second note. Fine ass tomatoes. Okay, so I don't know what it is with the raisins, but apparently in their media there's this thing where like the tomatoes, it's always a female and they're always hot. Like canonically, they're supposed to be, you know, because we saw 3 tomatoes in that special. 2 of them were around their manager and were supposed to be, you know, attractive women. That's what they were supposed to be. And then the third one was during the phone sex line bit, which I did not expect out of that. And of course it was supposed to be a seductive tomato. And then I have seen one clip of the California Raisin show. One clip, about 8 seconds. And all it was them walking in a mall. And then one of them was like, "Hey, look at the fine ladies over there," or something like that. And it was these 2 tomatoes that were once again supposed to be attractive women. So I don't know what it is about tomatoes, but they're freaking horn for them in the California Raisins cinematic universe, the Raisin universe. I just thought I'd point that out because they kept it going in this special, and I thought that was interesting.
Somebody at Will Vinton Studios had a fetish for tomatoes.
Yep. My other note, okay, my other one says grapes, they are smooth, but they are still raisins. But we already discussed that, and that it just completely breaks the canon, the raisin canon. And then my next one is Alien Half. What was that scene again?
My alien half does not speculate, Captain. However, my raisin half says,
because it was Spock as one of the raisins.
Yeah, it was a parody of Star Trek.
My alien half does not speculate, but my raisin half goes,
ooh, whatever it is. They started their song.
Just started singing.
That was like probably the only thing that, I don't know if it intentionally was supposed to make you laugh, but it was the one thing that actually made me genuinely laugh. Not because it was bad, just because it was actually, like, it was funny.
It wasn't actually meant to be, like, the joke itself.
It wasn't.
But the ridiculousness of it made it a joke itself.
Oh, yeah. They all fucking die. That's what I put next. They were frozen and first of all, they went to Antarctica, right? And I know there's the big thing where, like, Metallica was supposed to be the first band to play on every continent. It wasn't Metallica. It was actually the Raisins, apparently. Because they played to a bunch of snowmen, and then they froze and died, and then they flew in. They flew their plane and crashed into that concert, and what got them famous. They flew into a Lake Rockley concert, And Lick Broccoli is the punk rock Broccoli. I guess he's supposed to be like Johnny Rotten or the Sex Pistols or something. But
he has nipples.
He has nipples. The Broccoli has
they
nipples.
animated nipples on him.
Yeah. But they flew into his concert and then they thawed out and immediately went into song. It was incredible. My next note was Lick Broccoli has nipples. Oh, and then, I forgot about this. You know what's his name? I forgot the guy that actually sings for the Raisins. He was, like, legit. Obviously, he was a good singer. Like, he recorded with, like, Jimi Hendrix and stuff. Like, the dude was...
So the actual singer.
Yeah, like, he was up there. Like, he played with Jimi Hendrix stuff. And then my last one was, I guess, Sex Phone Line. But I guess we already talked about that.
One note that I made is that at the very end, they said something. Here's one we've been working on, you know? And they started singing, heard it through the grapevine. We were waiting for it the whole show, and then they finally did it at the end. So a little bit of fan service there.
Credits roll.
But it implies that they wrote all these songs, which in real life, there's all these different artists who wrote these songs.
Oh, yeah.
That
Prada Bag, Tutti Frutti. I don't even know how they got the rights to that one. Or I guess if it's a cover, you don't need it, but they did market it.
I think it was freaking questionable.
You're right.
Back
They didn't write it. Zoot wrote it. the Cantaloupe. They kicked out of the band.
Zoot is the fall guy. Like if they get into legal trouble, they just say, "Oh, Zoot told us this was a real song."
It's Zoot. I thought they were going to do like a Beatles thing because, like, you know that there was actually a fifth Beatle. The original drummer got kicked out because he got all the ladies and was too attractive, so they kicked him out of the band and got Ringo. But just a little history lesson there. But that reminded me of it. But
I think they were parodying the Beatles.
Yeah,
with
they had the
album.
Raisins
cover.
Yeah, and then in the Mad TV one did the same thing, the same album cover. That was a great one. The Mad TV.
The Mad TV one was pretty good. Again, dark humor, not not necessarily questionable, but the freaking Marilyn Manson grape Marilyn Manson. Charles Manson grape.
Yeah,
and then John Wayne grapey.
Yeah,
at the very beginning, a little weird, but I think it
was very funny though. If you don't watch Meet the Raisins, it's like 27 minutes. Watch the Mad TV parody because it's like 3 minutes of gold.
It was definitely on par with what Mad TV usually does, you know?
Yeah.
And
they're trashing their hotel and they had a bunch of ladies there. And I did notice that some of the ladies were grapes. So once again, I'm a little confused.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's Mad TV, it's not canon, but there was grapes. I saw them.
You just can't know.
I mean, I don't know. How do they become in canon? How do they become raisins? Because none of the other fruit rots. None of it shrinks. None of it expires, apparently. They did murder that corn on live TV. I forgot about that. Remember in that?
He wasn't murdered. He was the little corn kernels.
She was
I don't know that it was a she.
Really? I thought it was.
It was a very high-pitched voice gentleman.
Oh. Well, it was a...
It can be whatever it wants to be, but... I believe it was meant to be like a high-pitched gentleman,
It was
very nerdy guy.
The corn was a bad singer, so the host popped the corn.
Yeah, but he was still sentient after he popped.
Oh, yeah.
Like the little corn kernels were all moving around. I think that guy was a lime, but I'm not sure.
He was disgusting.
Whatever he was literally... he's not the worst animation, but the worst looking thing that I've ever seen in that show. And we did also see a lot of Zoot, but I think the lime guy was the worst. His movement was just awful.
His face was really unsettling too, and the fact that he had like pants on, right? But only the top that was the fruit moved. The rest of it was just non-moving.
Yeah, it was crazy.
But it was definitely something to watch. I'm glad you put it on DVD just for us to find it on what was a Daily Motion.
I'm sure that the DVD has other features, but we're not watching them.
There was a couple celebrities that were raisins. I know one of them was Michael Jackson. What was the other one?
That's a good question.
Was it Marvin
Gaye?
Might have been. I don't remember.
Because that's what I was thinking. Marvin Gaye is the one who originally sang "Heard It Through the Grapevine,"
I think it
and
was
so I
Marvin
guess
Gaye-
he
Marvin Gaye
probably had to be on board with it to like sign it over.
then. Yeah.
But like them claiming that they wrote it, like what the heck?
Yeah. It makes me wish that they had more celebrity endorsements so that they would have because there's an actual Michael Jackson raisin you can buy. Like,
Yep.
probably cop that relatively soon in celebration of this podcast. But oh god, imagine if they had like the ones they could have, dude. Like I don't know, like Guns N' Roses or maybe some like Bret the Hitman Hart or something
I know
out
that
of the blue.
Paul McCartney really liked the first commercial that they did, which is the one where the construction worker is. We're big Raisin fans, so we just know all the commercials. But the one where the construction worker opens up his lunch kit and the raisins come out and dance on his sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
Paul McCartney loved that, and so whenever I was reading up on raisins, I found where the lead guy at Sunmade talked about how Paul McCartney's assistant called him and asked for a copy of the commercial so that Paul McCartney could watch it on repeat.
Oh my gosh.
Paul McCartney was such a big fan
That's
of
incredible.
that one California Raisins commercial.
I like the one that goes 16. Can you send that one to me? Gosh, that's incredible. A man of culture.
Really, he is. You have any more on your list?
No, I think I touched up on all of it. I really hope I'm not forgetting anything.
I really don't have much left. I'm going to, through a long line of things, I'm going to imagine this like a magic trick. I'm going to connect it to the namesake of this podcast, Transformers. Easier than you might think. And I'm going to make it like a circle too, so it all comes back around. The Raisins originally showed up in 1986 and were created by Will Vinton Studios.
Uh-huh.
Will Vinton Studios became the company that's now known as Leica, or Leica. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but they're the company that did Coraline, Paranorman, Kubo and the Two Strings.
No way.
All of them stop motion animated.
Incredible animation.
The son of the owner of Leica, who directed Kubo and the Two Strings, is a gentleman named Travis Knight, who directed the most recent Transformers movie, Bumblebee.
Really?
So that is how I connected it to Transformers. Now let me bring it back around. Bumblebee featured references to The Breakfast Club, which had Judd Nelson in it as the slacker kid, and Bumblebee mimics the pose that he does at the end of Breakfast Club whenever it freeze frames and everything. Judd Nelson played Hot Rod in Transformers the movie. He voice acted Hot Rod, the original movie, and then that movie came out in 1986. So it all comes back around.
It's all the same. It's all pretty rad. Good year. Very good year.
It was. I think if I was going to name anything that was... Of course, I wasn't around back then, but if I was going to name anything that I thought of as quintessentially 80s, I would think 1986 fits in good for that, you know?
When did Back to the Future come out?
85.
So close.
I know.
When did 2 come out? Was that 86?
2 came out in 89. Now, yeah.
In 89? I thought they filmed them back to back.
So they filmed...
Or maybe the movie gives that impression.
They filmed 2 and 3 back to back.
Oh, okay.
They filmed 2 and 3 at the same time, actually.
That's got to be a nightmare to manage.
I'm sure it was very confusing for Michael J. Fox and Chris Lloyd and all of them. We can't turn this into a Back to the Future podcast.
It's a podcast. You can go wherever you want.
But we'll end it on some Raisin stuff if I can think of a little bit. Back to the Future 1 came out in 85. And then Back to the Future 2 came out in 89. And you can kind of tell because it's mimicking the 80s because Back to the Future 1 came out in 85. And so in 89, whenever they go to the future, they're sitting there in the writer's room thinking, what is the future of 1985 going to look like? What's a quintessentially 80s future?
Mm-hmm.
Because
do you think they did that on purpose?
I think it's a brilliant move because it makes it actually timeless. They're not trying to look at, I mean, they were trying to look at what the future was going to be, but they did it in a way that was more of what they know.
More comical too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also think it came out very well to influence the 90s, maybe, because all the bright colors in the future and just...
Oh,
I think
that could have led to the 90s, kind of like that movement?
The 90s sort of bright...
Vanilla Ice.
Yeah, the neon and the bright colors and all the
but
colorful,
the other,
you know?
Other part of the 90s that's more like grunge and dark and
it did.
less vibrant, which of course eventually led to 16.
Right, but that would have been the late 90s.
Yeah.
So, but and of course, time is a complicated thing.
It is.
But I like Back to the Future too because it's a movie from 1989 that feels like it belongs in both the 80s and the 90s because of that.
Is that how it's done? Do I need to sun dry them? Is it safe to eat?
I mean,
borderline rotten fruit.
They're called sun-dried raisins because they are sun-dried.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
What's the difference of letting it bake in a field or bake on my counter? You know what I mean?
Because your counter is different in the fact that it doesn't have the sun. The sun has a lot of UV radiation and stuff that kills bacteria. I didn't do the research, man.
You
but
can put some sanitizer on it. You're fine.
There's going to be some nasty... You're also keeping them hydrated if you keep putting sanitizer on them.
I don't know. Maybe it's sterilized. I don't know. It also makes me wonder, like, who thought of grapes? Somebody just, like, left their grape... Who thought of raisins? Somebody left their grapes. I was like, oh, it looks like shit. I'm going to eat one. You know what I mean? I mean, I guess it's also in the line of, like, who cooked the first egg.
Right.
Like, ew. It's freaking poultry period. Let me pop it in my pan.
So they invented pans before they cooked the first egg.
What came first, the egg or the pan?
Let me pop this on my rock.
Yeah.
And stir it with my rock.
Well, no, what they did is they went to their grapes they left out in the sun to sun dry them. They popped their egg right next to it. We got been in the sun and the eggs.
Dude, been in the sun and Tiny Good Bite are personally my favorite.
They're S tier.
Favorite names for them, you know.
You know who Justin X Grape is, right?
He's
Remember the dude
guy
who plays no instrument. He's just the guy that just blazed out of his mind. That raisin, that's Justin X Grape.
Of course.
That's why it's Justin X Grape, because he played a fucking instrument. He's just a raisin. It's lame as hell.
I was gonna say
he's just a roadie, but he goes around to all the parties of the women. He's like, yeah, I'm a California raisin.
I was gonna say he was the guy who shot Martin Luther King.
All the tomatoes. Malcolm X Grape. Can we say that?
I think that's getting cut.
I don't know. Pretty good.
Malcolm X Grape. Malcolm X didn't even kill Martin Luther King.
I know, but they're in the same universe.
I don't have anything else. Oh my god.
Is this the end of the road?
I think it is. Alright, let's wrap it up then.
Alright, bye.
I've had a good time talking to my friend Aaron Lamb about
who lives on
about
said it, but he'd have to edit it. Dude. It's probably a dick move.
I had a good time talking to my friend Aaron Lamb about the California Raisins and about our
common interest in the song 16.
Oh, yeah.
And the journey to...
We've learned a lot of history today, both on raisins and video games. And it's getting cut, but I'm leaving that in.
Okay.
They don't have to know the context. But this has been the Generation One More Time podcast. Thank you once again to Mr. Troy Jacobson. You can find him on tumbleweed.com or reverbnation.com/Troy Jacobson. You can also find me on patreon.com/Hylanos.
You got a Patreon?
And you can find Aaron Lamb on... Where can we find you, Aaron?
In the sun.
Alright, bye. Hey, this is Future Garrett from that podcast you just listened to. I just wanted to get on and say we made a few factual errors when recording this podcast. It was late at night, and it's just for fun, really. We know that Malcolm X Grape is not the one who shot Martin Luther King. We know that grapes, obviously, are not what comes before raisins. And the main factual error I'd like to fix is that Mr. Troy Jacobson can be found at tumbledweed.com. He has a lot of photography you can check out there, quite a few paintings that you can check out there. He's a very creative gentleman, and I've enjoyed talking to him and learning from him. Everything we said in this podcast, again, just for fun, and everywhere I've spoken about will be linked in the description.